results are impressive, but they will not be enough.
To the very pinnacle of the heavens, the world shall tremble. Unleash Ultima!
Welcome everybody to MogTalk, episode 145. Today we are discussing Ultimate UwU, and we're going to talk about the world race. And I brought on three wonderful guests with me. And thank you, by the way, before we even get started, thank you Penguin Mint for making that video. That was an absolutely wonderful video there. Team Captain Cat, which I'm going to talk about here because it got a lot of responses in chat here. But before we get too far into it, if you guys haven't been or watched MogTalk before, it's a show based around the Final Fantasy XIV community where we discuss everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. And today, let me introduce our three guests. First, I'll introduce our members from Entropy. Both without cams, both with adorable avatars here. And I... You're welcome. You're welcome. Aya, you've been on the show before. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Glad to be back. Hopefully, I'll be back again eventually.
Yeah. How many times have you been on the show now?
I think 2 times before. One time was for the Angered episode, and one time was for the Creator Speed Kills.
Right. What was it? I remember there being some sort of I don't know. You joined. When did you join Angered?
In the middle of progression for UCUP.
That's right. That's what it was. I remember all that was whole nonsense. We won't get into that, but that was interesting. And then we have your teammate now, Zeppe.
That the returning teammate.
Yeah, returning teammate. And Zeppe, you were in a different group last year.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then you joined his group.
Yep.
Okay.
Went NA, EU, NA, EU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that.
Jesus. You guys have been fucking everywhere, man. And then we have on the show now the only person who brought a webcam with him. Who, we got matching shirts. So I feel pretty good about that. Matching white shirts here. Yeah. We're plain as fuck. Sfia, welcome back to the show. And how you doing, buddy?
Good. Feels like it wasn't very long ago I was on here, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Couple of weeks.
So you're right now the Elysium representative.
Yes, that's me.
So just so you guys all know, anything bad said is in regards to anything is by a representative of Elysium right here. He represents everything that they say.
Yes.
And same thing with Entropy. Anything that Aya and Zeppe say here directly goes back to their feelings and emotions and thoughts. Okay?
Sure.
Sorry. It's funny to me. I don't know why, but it's hilarious to me to try and put you guys in horrible positions like that. But all of you guys are doing the world race, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think so.
Think so?
Like to use that. Otherwise, no.
Yeah?
Maybe I disappears. I don't think so.
Entropy. Is it Entropy?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
I'm
it's
saying
Entropy.
Entropy. I see like the H in there, and I just want to...
I thought you were just trying to be funny.
Oh, no, that's just fucking... I'm an idiot. So I say things incorrectly. Entropy. All right, I'll say
Yeah, it's
Entropy.
Entropy.
I apologize. I'm very sorry. But guys, today we're talking about the world race. Sorry, it's a little bit sloppy start. It's been a couple of weeks for me. I've been out doing a whole bunch of other things. I've been working on this website. I've been working on a whole big life change also in the background here too. So not the life change you might be thinking. It's just with jobs. All right, just with work and everything else. But we want to talk about the world race today and kind of what you guys are going to be looking forward to with it and who we have in the race, expectations, and things that we may have learned from the other race before. But to start it off, I want you guys to just kind of declare how many teams maybe you have with your respective free companies that could be running. So, how many teams does Entropy have running?
It is a good question. That I
Oh,
know the
yeah.
answer to.
The representative of Entropy cannot tell me how many.
It's okay, we've got 2 of those. I'm sure Zeppe knows.
As far as I know, it was tweeted that we go with one hardcore team, which is like ours. I don't know what the other teams are doing. I think they're going like hardcore, but not like every day or something like that. I'm not sure.
Okay, see, you can't even blame me for not knowing if we have another team, because apparently we don't.
Oh, that's not sounding good for you guys, man. You guys are always already starting out kind of weak on the race. Organization. So, well, it's okay. It's okay. Sfia, you know how many teams Elysium's running, right?
Yes, I know how many hardcore teams we have.
Okay.
So, my team, Shaggy Fusion Ultra Instinct, which is terrible but great name, and Wheelchair are both doing minimum 1 week. And
Okay.
then we have 2 other teams doing 5 days of 16 hours, being Tempest and VS.
Okay.
So, yeah, big representation this time.
That's pretty awesome. All right, so let me get this right. You said one team's doing a week, the other team's doing 5 days. So like one team's just like a couple of days more. They just declared they were going to go on an extra weekend, or what?
It's like a week plus. So I don't know exactly how long Wheelchair are going for, but I know that our team is like prepared for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Whereas the later 2 teams are like, this is Happy's team, which is going to be streaming. So you can't really say World Prog if they're streaming because they're kind of like unsure, and VS also don't really want to say World Prog because they've had a lot of last minute roster changes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the hours are like World Prog level.
Okay. So that's another interesting point, which we'll get into a little bit later on with streaming and everything else with the race, because people who are considered racing usually don't stream. So if you see it, they're not announcing themselves as in the race because they are streaming and they are at a detriment because of it. But they are still going pretty hard. The other part here is, what other teams do you guys know besides your own group of teams that are in the race right now? I have a list here of people who said they're going to race. You guys can tell me what you think about it if you want.
I personally know of like 6 teams in total that are like definitely saying we are taking 2 weeks off and going full hardcore for it, which is like Wheelchair, then Sophia's group, or the Later Bell team, Entropy, Stardom, then, well, the JP are like a black box. You never know what they do, but I'm just assuming that they're going to take like 2 weeks off. Like, I'm pretty sure that Owen is going to be there. Like, Owen was there when UwU was around as well. And then, of course, Lucretia.
So I heard a rumor about the JPs. I'm not sure how much like truth there is behind it, but apparently some of the better members from Lucre, Rushers, and the BLT team that are speedrunning are making some supergroup, and they're going to do World Prog. Yeah.
Oof.
I do see BLT in a list here.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. I mean, I just checked like couple weeks ago. Just checking through the like the Krisa UCOP team, and they're all like gearing up. So I would assume that they're all going, but I don't know if they're going like super hardcore or just like a week or something.
And they're gonna come up and they're gonna win, and they're gonna say, "Oh, we weren't trying." Nah, we're just doing it for fun. We don't have a team name. But we'll post it on Twitter. Just make sure you guys know.
And then in an interview afterwards, you hear like, "Oh well, we wanted to go for it, and if we wouldn't have gotten first, we would have disbanded instantly."
Yeah. And one of our members said he wanted to play Samurai, so we just all right. We'll take it.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, but yeah, with the JP groups, I do see BLT listed here and a few other groups in here that I've just told me. I mean, I really don't know because there's a lot of people who don't tell me they're racing. And I don't know, a lot of these, Owen's definitely listed in here. And some of these that are on like Tonberry, like AlphaCo, and then there is Hongbao. Yeah, Hongbao.
Mm.
And then this name I can't even read because it's in Japanese. But there's a decent amount. I think this, and it's funny because the last Ultimate was heavily cited for the Japanese data centers. There's a lot of clears on the Japanese side, as opposed to the normal Savage race, which seems to be on the other side with EU and NA group. So it almost feels like sprints work out really well for NAEU, and then like endurance races work well for like a lot of JP groups out there.
I think that same sort of spread is kind of reflected even in like not necessarily the race itself, but the clears of 08 and 04. JP always just more of them can beat the content than they can in NA and EU.
Okay, so you just think JP players could just, they're a little bit more dedicated to just getting the clear?
So I wanted to say, I think like the JP community is just a lot more dedicated and like ambitious in terms of like, I don't think that the majority of them necessarily want to go forward first, but I think they just have the ambition to clear it and like appreciate the content that the developers are making for them.
I got you.
And I think the same is probably going to happen with this Ultimate as well, that like you'll have a few groups in EU, a few groups in NA that clear it in a short time, and then you have like the mass amount of JP come and then clear it.
Well, I mean, I'm really, really hoping that an NA or EU team gets world first so I could have an interview with the world first team and talk to them. Because,
do you have a theory as to what team you're supporting?
Oh, do you know which team I'm supporting?
I mean, you didn't bring anyone from Team Wheelchair on the show, which is the other prominent, I would say, world progression group. So
I couldn't find
you're
any.
expecting them after progression because you just think they're going to be there on your world first show.
Well, maybe that's what it is. You know, we'll have to do another little Star Wars thing too. I think afterwards about the, Exodus of Zeppe, right? Episode 2.
You already made that actually.
Huh?
Didn't you already say you had this script ready or something?
Somebody has it ready, right? Aya?
What?
You have a script ready?
Making him.
I have the script for the next one.
Oh, excellent.
I also wrote the last one.
So if you win, is this wheelchair wins, or is this, what is the script for?
No, it's just like I've been thinking about it. I've just written about like a couple of scripts for like any team winning. So
this is what you do in your spare time.
Sometimes you get really bored, and then you're just like, oh, let's do this.
Okay.
I mean, I was kind of forced to write the next thing.
Okay. You were forced to do it because you wrote the first one. It worked out so well, and you were just forced to do every single one afterwards. Okay.
Yeah, we forced him to write for like 5 different versions. It was all on us.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So do you guys think that right now we have more teams seem to be preparing for this race than they were in the last Ultimate race?
Definitely, I think so.
Okay. So just, it was weird because I don't know if it was just the whole transition, there was a lot of people wanting to do it and they weren't expecting much, and then they just kind of fell apart during the process of going through it because it was very difficult, and a lot of teams just weren't able to keep up with it, and then they just stopped. They went back to life, and they didn't want to dedicate extra time to it. Do you think that we're going to have maybe a similar situation to where a lot of people are kind of funneling in there, and then they'll just kind of break out to where only a few groups are doing it, or are people's expectations in a better place than they were before?
I think there are only like very few groups, like the ones that I've mentioned earlier, that are like planning for 2 weeks. But I think that there are probably a lot of unknown groups, or like groups where we don't know about them, like in like they didn't declare it officially, who are just like, you know, like saying, okay, we're gonna do like a week, and then like they doesn't mean that they expect it to clear in a week, but like they're just taking a week off for it, and then who knows how the content is going to turn out, if it takes like a week, if it takes 2 weeks. So I think like there are probably going to be a lot more groups participating in the World Race now, but
okay,
you know, I think only very few are preparing for 2 weeks.
I mean,
Just depends on the content.
It can't be longer than 2 weeks, right? There's like no way it could take 2 weeks for clearing this.
So
Sounds like you want us to disagree, but yeah, it should not be longer.
I'm saying it as I want to hear if you guys have any reason to why there would be more than 2 weeks. Because right now, Square is pretty much saw that and they're like, wow, maybe we made the fight too long, and they're going to cut off a part of it. But I don't think they could make mechanics more complicated than they already have. Well, maybe they could. I don't know.
So the last Ultimate was kind of uncharted territory, and we didn't know what to expect, and people were saying, 2-3 days max, and then it went forever. But we knew who was making that fight, and we knew the types of fights that he had made before. We don't know who's making this one, and that means that all that we know is it's not the same guy, not Kenji Sudo. So that it means that it's the first time that someone other than him has made a hard fight.
I mean,
It could be anything.
It's a company after all, and I mean they work in the same office. I'm pretty sure that Sudo is like watching over and says like, maybe this thing is not so good, maybe this thing is good. I'm pretty sure he does. I'm pretty sure he has this influence, not so much as he did in UCOP, but I'm pretty sure he's still going to have a major influence in how the things turn out, especially since he also made Titan. So
This is true.
Yeah. I mean, it's... I don't know. I'm really afraid, guys. I'm really afraid that like I'm going to wake up on Wednesday and then a clear is going to be done. That they just scaled it back so hard that it's literally just a little bit harder than like a, I don't know, 08S.
I mean, that's the thing about the fight that I've been thinking a lot about. So like in an interview, Yoshida said that this fight is going to be different. And he said something along the lines of it's like quick judgment skills. So, and that it's different from UCOP, which was like rather mediocre coordination skills and like movement and whatnot. And what this sounds to me is like this is going to be a lot about dodging, like strafing left, right, whatever, and like dodging dive bombs who are like coming at you from 12 sides at the same time.
They're going to be Ifrit charges, not dive bombs, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that I think player skill in terms of dodging stuff varies a lot more than coordination does. And I feel like they either make the fight too easy because it's just dodging, or they make it way too hard. I feel like finding the right balance in terms of like dodging stuff is very hard, because you have to consider like if you make dodging stuff really hard, the only way to make it really hard is throwing so much at you that you get lost. So people with a good orientation skills would like succeed in it, and like other people would be very bad at it. Because you have like people that are like natural monsters in terms of dodging, and then you have others that might be good in coordination but not so good in dodging.
Well, I mean, the other thing is if it's like in reaction for dodging and everything else, the JP data centers are going to have a lot better advantage in this situation, right? Because their ping is going to be much, much better.
Naturally, people who have a better ping are going to be at an advantage, surely.
Sucks for me.
New Zealand. World race. It's okay, Sfia.
I'll be fine.
You're used to it, right? I mean, EU did it for like a long time. EU figured it out. They didn't win anything.
Honestly, like I feel like the game's kind of changed a little bit in the way that AoEs are like calculated now as well. It feels a lot more forgiving than it used to be.
Okay.
But that's besides the point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think you're going to have to make the judgment calls like you were saying, but they're going to just say math equations?
I would love that.
Are they going to filter it out by, that's such a weird type of mechanic too to introduce. I mean, I'm not against it. I think it's fine. You can figure it out if you know basic math, but it's interesting that so many players had issues with it because they just weren't expecting that to be in there. And now we consider that a level of difficulties that you have to do math as soon as you go into a fight.
I think that might be in the next 8-man raid, like the next Savage tier. In the same way that they introduced the misdirection spinny thing.
Definitely. I was thinking the exact same, yeah. I think they were going to do it as well. Like at least in the second or third turn, they're going to give us like, oh, now you have to multiply instead of divide.
Yeah.
Are they trying to be like an after-school like practice thing? Like they're just saying like, oh, play Final Fantasy. It's educational, right?
They just love gimmicks.
I'm just trying to think of who. I guess it's not a bad idea, right? I mean, some boss has to come out and be the guy that says, "All right, do this math equation," right? That's something that's seen in a lot of MMOs. Yeah. No. Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay.
I play a lot of MMOs.
I think so.
Okay. But in regards to mechanics, and I guess we could talk about the fight a little bit and what you got, since you guys have obviously been preparing for this fight and what it could possibly offer, right? Are you holding secrets close to your chest about theories of mechanics?
Honestly, I don't think there's much that anyone else who's put in a little bit of research wouldn't already know. Like,
Right.
The fights themselves are pretty simple, like Garuda, Titan, Ifrit, and Ultimate. There's very little actually going on inside those fights.
Yeah.
So I think the complexity is going to come from combinations of those and the pace of them.
Yep. That's basically what I meant. Like, it's going to be a lot about dodging and seeing stuff.
Yeah. I'm hoping whereas UCorp was more of an information fight, where once you knew how something works, you basically, as a player, for every mechanic, had like a float chart in your head. If I get marked for this, I have to do something. If I don't get marked, I have to do something else, and that's your only two options. And what I'm hoping is to make a fight the same difficulty in a shorter fight duration as they said they would make. Then it has to be more about execution rather than just knowing how it works. It's supposed to be difficult, even if you know how it works.
Right. And I mean, you could say UCOP was definitely that. I mean, people definitely had issues trying to re-clear it afterwards. I mean, there's people, that are just now clearing it, right? That have been practicing on it for like 6 months.
Oh.
So I heard you saying something, Sfia.
Yeah, I think the point that I was making about it being an information fight, UCOB is a much harder fight to learn than it is to clear. Going in blind and actually figuring things out was infinitely harder, in my opinion at least, than actually doing the mechanics themselves. Outside of like twin and nail phase, mechanically it's not that difficult. As soon as you can break down all the parts of the trios, you can execute it almost 100% consistently every single time. Like there's a little bit of randomness in Octet, but other than that, it's very like static in the way that it functions.
Yep.
So if they were to try and reverse that and go for a fight that's easy to learn but very difficult to execute, you're looking at something like 15 minutes of nail phase or twin and nail phase where there's just shit flying everywhere.
And that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like you can either do it way too easy because players are just so good and they underestimated how good the players are by now, or they make it way too hard by putting so much stuff in it that you just get like overwhelmed by it.
I mean, do you think that they were happy with the amount of people who cleared Ultimate? I didn't actually read anything about it, so I don't know if they put out a statement saying, oh, we're okay with, this amount of people clearing it. But, I mean, I'm content with it. Are you guys content with how many people have cleared it? I mean, it feels like exclusive content for hardcore raiders. Like, people who are really skilled at the game can clear it. Are people who couldn't have a lot of money, I guess, could buy it, but in the end, it's something that you could be proud of, right?
This is kind of like a hot take on it, but
Sure.
kind of follows onto what I just said about it being a difficult fight to learn but easy to execute. And now this is my opinion. A lot of people won't feel the same, but I think that there are teams that simply just threw their heads against this fight for the last 6 months and got it clear, and they're teams that at first sight I wouldn't think should clear it, because it's simply like a matter of just remembering every single like option that you have at every single like intersection throughout the fight.
Okay. So you think that there are people who can clear this fight who probably aren't at the skill level that they probably should be at if they're clearing the hardest content in the game?
Not to say that people are bad, but more like teams are less coordinated, teams are doing things in ways that aren't necessarily efficient or good, but they're still getting away with it just by literally just head into wall for hours. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, like, do we need a fight where you have to play 100% perfectly to clear it? I mean, is that kind of what we want from Ultima?
That was what I expected when he said, like, this is only like going to be cleared by a very select few group of people and very exclusive content designed around that, as opposed to what I just said.
Okay. Now you're not calling out anyone that we know in particular.
No.
Okay. Just making
I mean,
sure.
I'm not naming
Just-
names.
just how it was earlier said, but this fight is like UCOP was an information fight, so the true difficulty does really not lie in executing it. So if a team clears it after 6 months, you can definitely assume that they did not learn or like figure out everything on their own. They obviously read guides and then learned it by that. So they didn't really beat the fight. They just cheated in some way because.
Oh, the people who read guides
follow the
cheat.
script.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't say that like generally if you read a guide that is cheating, but I would say that in this fight, by reading a guide, you kind of nullify the difficulty of it because I would say like for healers, this fight is still difficult. Like you have to plan out your mitigation and your GCDs and whatnot. So I would say like for healers, this is definitely a pretty good fight to test and try out. Maybe also for tanks, I don't know, but for DPS, this is really brain dead.
Okay.
It's all about figuring it out.
Yeah. Okay. So just kind of memorizing the script, and that's what UCOP came, and you guys want to see maybe a fight that's less memorizing the script and more just execution.
I think that's what we're getting. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, it looks kind of, seeing the beginning of the fight looks kind of interesting because I want to see how they transition things too. Because they're starting out with Garuda, then they're going to have to transition it to either another primal or... I mean, they already had these built-in transitions for the previous fights, right? Nail coming down was I guess maybe not going into Bahamut, that was a different one. But I mean, they're going to have to create another fight where they just link everything together. And they did a really, really good job with that in UCOB. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Sorry, I went on my own little rail here. I had no point in that.
You're talking like terms of new assets and things for the fight?
Yeah, I mean, new assets. They're going to have to build new assets for these transitions.
Absolutely.
A lot of them.
I also think they're going to have new like mechanics in them because there's just not enough like depth to the mechanics that are currently in those extreme fights.
Yeah.
Even Ultima doesn't have a lot.
Yeah, it's got like 3 things that it does. Everything else is taken from the other fights already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are we going to see all 3 like primals that were introduced? Are we going to see? We're going to do a Garuda fight, then we're going to do an Ifrit fight, then we're going to do a Titan fight, then we're going to do an Ultima fight, then we're going to do a La Habrea fight, then we're going to do a what's the guy's name fight? Fuck. Gaius fight.
Gaius?
Yeah, we're going to do a Gaius fight.
So I think anyone who's looked into it knows that it's probably going to be a 5-phase fight. What one of them is, we don't know. But 4 of the like song themes are already data mined, and there's just one missing one.
We got
in
it.
between 2 spots. Yeah.
Golden Gaius.
So,
I mean,
we don't know. It's the 4th one in the list. It goes like primal. There's an empty gap, and then there's Ultima. So there's something in there that we don't know. That's kind of what's going to throw things.
No, they said that Ultima does not have the Ultima theme. So the one where you think it's a primate, that's actually Ultima.
I don't know.
So there's. Okay, I didn't hear them say
They
that,
said-
but it's
They
changes
said
things.
Ultima. They said Ultima does not have the Ultima theme.
Oh,
Really?
interesting.
I don't believe you. Link me an article.
All right, let me find this again.
Okay.
Somewhere.
It's lying to you to.
I feel like, I've
This
had
competition.
I had people come up here and lie to me before on the show. I'm going to assume that that's a possibility. You world first, especially you Entropy people. You guys are tricky. I know it.
We've got a personal interest in making everybody else think something wrong about the fight, so we
Yeah.
can win easier. So
I remember when I was doing World Race, and then they're like, we're purposely going to wait to tell people when we cleared this just to throw them off. And we're going to just say, oh yeah, we cleared it like an hour or two after they cleared it. I remember that. Frosty doesn't forget. All right.
Yeah, on this Reddit interview, like someone who collected all of the things, he said, when they asked about the soundtrack for the fight, Yoshi P said all he can say is it wasn't the original Ultima weapon theme. So, I mean,
Isn't
Yeah,
that
I'm
the one that
pretty
we
sure-
got in the sound
Yeah.
files, though? Yeah. So that fifth track was Ultimate. And the fourth one is missing. It wasn't even in the sound files, but there's it was like 233, 234, 235, 236 was missing, and then Ultimate was 237. So you can extrapolate and just assume that it's going to be a 5-phase fight from that 6 if there's something at the end, but I doubt it if it's only going to be 15 minutes or so.
I mean, maybe they're just really good at hiding secrets. I don't know.
Mhm.
They figured out, because I mean, at this point, Square Enix understands their stuff gets data mined immediately, right? So they could probably find a way to trip it up. I don't know. They haven't done it yet, but maybe one day they will. All right. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about this topic too. We mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the show, but in regards to the world race and in regards to streaming, because right now, I don't know what your opinion is on it, but streaming Ultimate has already been proven to be super, super profitable for a Final Fantasy 14 streamer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
there was just that huge surge that went on at the start of Ultimate with 5150 and a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
Just it really exploded. I think it slowly died out as it got further into the fight and less people were streaming it as well.
Yeah.
But it was the busiest I've ever seen, like the Twitch page of Final Fantasy.
So it's kind of strange. I mean, have you guys had any conversations with your own teams about streaming? Have you pretty much just put firm, hey, we're not going to do it because we really want to win?
I think every team wants to win, so if they wanted to go for the profit, they would just say like, okay, we're not doing world first race. So,
Okay.
I mean,
Have you had that conversation with your team though, or has it been pretty much clear cut? No, we're not doing it.
I think it's just a common agreement. Like, you don't stream if you want to go for world first.
Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. Just it's understood.
Yeah, which is like I was saying before about one of our EM teams, Tempest. That's the one that Mr. Happy's in. So they're doing the really crazy hours, but they know that they're streaming, so they're just automatically at a disadvantage. So don't really want to consider themselves world prog.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, and streaming in particular has its own little minor side effects on the side where it makes your latency go a little bit off because you're sending data out, and so your upload's a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on your router. If you have a bad one and buffer bloats like hell, then yeah.
Yeah.
it also, like, if you're like streaming as an entertainer, you're then distracted as well, and may not be 100% focused on what you're doing, and it's a performance thing. So
Yeah, I mean, you got to
it's
keep.
important.
Even if you're not talking to chat, you're keeping the stream up and you're trying to make sure that things are working properly with it and nothing's going off. And every once in a while, you got to go back to the stream and address it during like little breaks or something. So it's
just kind of a dangerous thing to do, because just imagine you're streaming world progression for Ultimate Coil and you figured out Grand Octet, and then everybody who's watching you has now also figured out Grand Octet, and then you get stuck on something and they happen to
Oh,
have
yeah.
stuck in something, and now everybody else is ahead of you.
Yeah.
And so it's also not just about figuring out new mechanics. It's also like you can steal more consistent strats and phases that you've already seen. So say you're doing something that's really volatile in Quick March when you were there, you watch someone stream and see that they're doing something super safe, really consistent, uses less resources. Like you can just take that and do it. And it will make your team more consistent and give you a better chance.
Right. And, then they go to sleep and then you spend 8 hours ahead of them.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Let's actually assume that this fight is less about information and more about executing. This is all just an assumption and hypothetical.
Okay.
I would say if this fight turns out like that, you could potentially stream World First Racing. Because I would not, obviously not at the first day, obviously not in the first couple of days, of course not. But if you get to the part where you're about to hit Enrage consistently, I would argue that you can start streaming World First races. Because in an execution fight, first of all, you cannot copy execution skill. And the next thing is, you have a couple of options where other teams are. And if you hit Enrage, you might have to think either the other teams are hitting Enrage as well, in which case it does not matter if you're streaming or not because they know the same thing as you do. So if they were about to watch you, they would distract themselves. So they would put themselves at a disadvantage. And in case that they're behind you, it doesn't matter for you anyway because they will still be behind you unless if they waste resources to watch your stream.
Well,
So
I mean, they could have a 10-man, right? Instead of a 9th-man, have a 10-man who watches streams and then just tries to collect that information and send that down to you.
I mean, yeah, obviously. But
it would be if it's not an information fight exactly. It's just if every fight is just if we're doing 20 charges, Titan doing 20 landslides, and it's just everything is immediately obvious but just hard to execute. In that case, it doesn't really matter if you just show everybody because everybody's going to be just struggling on it.
Exactly, that's what I meant. So
okay,
if in that case you could probably stream and not care about it, and you would be still in the World First race without being at any disadvantage. But I still doubt that would ever happen. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, if we ever get to that point, it would probably be a thing. I mean, you saw it in the Destiny 2 raid, where something like that happened. Destiny 2 is a FPS, so execution matters more. Unfortunately, I think the group that was the furthest actually got stream sniped. The strats were sniped, and then another team got first. So yeah, that was one of those things where it happened.
Okay. So obviously we're gonna have to see because we don't know if it is execution based or not. So that's already a red flag. The other thing to this though is, I mean, for you guys as world first racers, all you guys care about literally is getting world first. It's not any other side profit or anything else. You just want to get world first, right?
Yeah, I think that's what you want if you go into one of these competitions.
Because it's kind of it's almost like an unrewarding job, except for the fact of getting the title, the unofficial title of being world first. Because all these people who are streaming who are not world first, they get something else out of it in the end. Then you have, we could talk about it too, where the people who do PvP right now, they'll get a ticket to FanFest and hotel stay and airplane paid for if they're in one of the top teams for PvP. But if you're world first, you don't really get anything except for that title.
I mean, for me, it's also just the most enjoyable way to do the content, because if you're always at what is basically the bleeding edge of information, so to say, and you always have to figure out the mechanics yourself, that's a part of progression I enjoy a lot. It's not as fun for me if I just read a guide into the fight.
Same.
Okay. So it's just enjoyment. You guys don't give a shit. You just like to have fun.
I mean,
for World First Raiders just like having fun. We'll make a song.
I think you have to have fun. Otherwise, why even be here?
Okay.
I just do something for 2 weeks, 16 hours a day if you hate it. It's just
I just love both. I love the competition and I love figuring out stuff, and I think it would just bore me to death if I had to read a guide or watch a stream to figure it out.
Okay. All right. Well, that clears it up. I just some people, might just think, oh man, I want to become a big streamer or something, and then they're going to start streaming this stuff, and then you guys have this opportunity, and you're just like, don't need it. I'm having fun.
I mean, maybe at some point they will acknowledge World First more. Didn't they actually bring the JP team into like an interview room, and then I had that interview with Kenji Sudo and Yoshida?
What?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there was like an aftermath interview with Sudo and Lucretia, at least the team that cleared the UCOP first. And it said like they were sitting in the same room. I don't know if that was like an online room or if that was actually offline. I assume it was offline.
Actually,
but probably just because it's JP.
Yeah,
so
it'd be really easy.
same
for them.
country.
Yeah. They haven't done it here yet. I don't know if they will. They might do it. They might actually do it at FanFest, right? They might bring people up for interviews and everything when FanFest comes around, which is something, I guess. Okay. All right. We'll get off that. I guess we can lead this pretty much in and just kind of finish this off. We already talked about it a little bit, but the secrecy kind of going on with World Race stuff right now, and how you guys probably feel about when people are doing a race. A lot of people were out there sending pictures out, right? That was a big thing in Ultimate, or not Ultimate, Ultimate UCOB, is people would post pictures online. Right? Yeah, Zeppe.
I never posted anything.
Uh-huh. But
I posted his...
No. We have got a funny story about Grand Octet with you and pictures. We hit Grand Octet, right? And so did some JP group on Twitter, and they tweeted their pattern of Grand Octet. And Zeppe was our 9th man for progression at the time in Delete Monk and was trying to help us figure out Grand Octet. And his theory at the time was whatever side of Bahamut you saw a line of 3 different small dragons on would be the first to dive. And then JP tweeted their picture of a pattern where you didn't have a line of 3 dragons on either side. And Zeppe tried telling it was photoshopped.
You guys are the worst. That's horrible. Are you guys gonna? So I gotta ask. Are you guys gonna start trying to post misinformation now too? Is that gonna be part of your strategy?
I don't know. Depends on what we're allowed to tell. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. Momo tweeted a lot, I think, and Gaia tweeted his to fancy feast.
God.
He tweeted a lot of nonsense in progression. Momo was really into it, and he was like posting pictures of like water resistance potions or something.
Phoenix down, by the way.
Yeah.
You guys are a bunch of trolls, man. Bunch of trolls, dude.
That was the best troll.
Sfia, do you guys in Elysium? Do you guys have any kind of rule set for information and releasing information?
Only in terms of like releasing kill videos, where it's like, yeah, don't release until first has or 3 teams, I think. But in terms of like our team specifically, we like try and avoid outside like information. I know that. Oh, that's actually just a really good example of misinformation. Someone came and told us that Angert had said that Mornifar was distance based. And like we knew straight away that it wasn't, but like the fact that we heard that, we're kind of like, hang on a second. Are they like, sowing the seeds for other people to trip up on, or but no, like it's obvious when something doesn't work like that, but
I mean, it's obvious if you hear like, oh, these guys said, I mean,
yeah.
The funny thing is, Angert never thought that, but Delete Monk did think that. So
Oh,
maybe
really?
it's a true story based on the wrong team or something.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah. The thing was, Delete Monk disbanded like 5 days before World First, so we only had a couple pulls on Golden, and one pull we had damage up on Bahamut without knowing that was like a mechanic yet, and we got destroyed by Monifar, and we're like, this is the first build.
Yeah, we the first time we saw that, we thought that it was like, was it named Lakshmi's Chanchala? Because he's all glowing and stuff. So we tried like tank LBing to survive the Mornifar and then hallowed grounding to try and just wait until the buff fell off, and it never did. We just died horribly.
And it sucks when you're deep into progression and you get this bits of information.
Yeah, some arbitrary no feedback check like that. It's tough. But then you do it properly and it's not a problem.
I mean, what you can assume, like, or what you can probably expect to happen is like you will see like people being like, "Ooh, this phase X is being an absolute beast and destroying us." Like just like like another twister. So like the tweets like this, and I think you can probably expect like reactions, but not like specifically what and where happens.
I mean, the other part to this too, if you guys don't put things on Twitter, if you guys don't say things about it, everyone's in the dark. And we only know what's on Twitch, right? And so for following a race, it's difficult without having some information out there. So it was actually kind of having people tease stuff, like it was teased a little bit on Twitter before, like just even if it was jokes and other things, it's still more exciting to people than hearing nothing at all.
I think you have to,
sorry, carry on.
you have to probably give Momo the most of the credit for this, because I think he also like treated like the feet of the dragons or something like that. Big fan.
And he was like always on Reddit on like whatever threads people were talking about Ultimate Coil, and very excited whenever someone brought up something he tweeted. Fucking Momo, dude.
Hey man, that might put you behind in the race too. That's distracting. Or maybe the endorphins he gets from that entire enjoyment he's having there, trolling, is that helps you guys
I don't
out.
blame him. You can definitely alt-tab during Twintania and just write a tweet.
Oh yeah, you can probably even do that. Meanwhile, in the trios, and some.
Maybe Garuda's not going to be as forgiving as Twintania. You never know. Could be bad. Real quick, just side note about Garuda. Do you guys think it's even remotely interesting that they removed the pillars from that fight?
That's obviously ready for Titan jails, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, I don't really. So you think Titan's going to come down and you're going to have to like deal with Titan and Garuda at the same time, and you got to deal with the jails to dodge?
What can they do with Garuda by herself to make it difficult?
Right. Because it's kind of weird, because that was part of almost all of the mechanic of Garuda is dealing with those pillars at the very beginning of the fight. So I don't know. Maybe they'll just deal the last half of the fight where you have to deal with, what was it, Sharada? And someone else?
Sharada and Supana.
Yeah. And you have to manage that like almost immediately into the fight and figure that out, and you have to deal with the whirlwinds and just not deal with any of the feathers attacking rocks.
I kind of hope that they don't bring the feathers back, but they will most likely do.
You don't want the spiny plume?
Yeah.
Where you
like 3 spiny plumes.
Can't hit.
Yeah. Avoid it and but someone has to tank it. It's just keep it around because it's doing tons of damage to somebody. So if you don't tank it, but it'll die in like 2 GCDs. Why not? That's enmity management, dudes. All right. So right now, you guys there's no real big rules. It's just whatever your group feels like they should put out there, and you don't feel like at risk putting that information out there.
I think like in terms of when teams get behind, this happened in Ultimate as well. Sometimes they'll turn on their streams and just like try and have fun with it. And this happened, I think, with VS. And as soon as they got to a new mechanic, which nobody else had streamed before, they just immediately turn it off and like refocus.
Okay.
Which I think is perfectly fair.
I mean, yeah, you can probably like send out. I think Momo uploaded videos of like Quick March Trio, like the first reaction of like Team Delete Monk reaching it. As soon as like there were also like streams reaching that phase. I think like these like putting up these things was actually pretty nice and like fun overall.
Okay.
Like as soon as you see like streams being there, like it's really whatever. Like you can release like the reactions in case someone is actually recording them.
Release reactions, like take a video.
It's nice to be doing something because at some point you are in like day 7 of proc. You just wiped. You are in phase 1 again. You need something like fun to talk about with the grip, or you're just gonna be very sad.
I mean, how do you guys even stay sane over a long period of time, 2 weeks of just hardcore raiding? That has to be overly draining mentally. You just don't stay sane? I mean, is that really it?
No, like, there's a certain level of insanity needed to kind of do this to yourself. But no, it's actually a lot of fun. I find it really challenging. It's sort of like marathon runners, I guess.
So if you just wake up and you're like, I get to go kill Twintania again 500 times today.
I mean, you use prog as sort of like an energy boost, and that will keep you going for a really long time. Just the adrenaline from seeing new stuff and dealing with new mechanics, that just carries you for a really long time. So it's actually really important to be making consistent progression, and that was shown in the most recent tier, Sigmascape, where there were 3 teams that didn't get stuck and cleared it really quickly. And then the 2 teams behind hit the wall. I think it was probably Star Strafe for both of us. That was our team and Hongbao, the Alvelon team. And we both had to just sleep and then clear it when we woke up. Okay. Using progression as like a tool to sort of motivate yourself is really, really big.
Okay. So I don't know. It feels in like a sprint, like Savage, you can just keep going, usually, until you pass out or you clear the content. But when we're dealing with Ultimate, we're dealing with like you have to plan out some way to stay alive while you're doing this too, right? I mean, do you guys have like these meal plans set out? You're like, I'm gonna eat ramen at this time for 5 minutes and then get back. I mean, there's foods
you avoid eating, like just sensibly. Don't eat like high sugar things like that, and avoid anything that's gonna upset your stomach or anything. But it's just generally like common sense. Sleep and eat well. Just quick breakfast. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
not too difficult.
It's kind of what I'm doing as well. Like I'm just preparing meals that are easy to prepare and like make and then eat those, like just healthy stuff. Planned out the entire week already.
You guys have energy drinks?
They're like last resort.
Last resort?
Pretty much you have energy drinks or coffee there for if you're like gonna kill it that night and you need it. That's about it.
Okay. Sfia, tell me your big breakfast, man. What's your breakfast? Yeah, what gives you energy?
I have a big bowl of oatmeal and some like yogurt swirled into it every day. Every day in Prague. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like water, but yeah, that's it. Oats are really good for you, man.
Oats are really good, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having
very
oats
complex carbohydrates.
I'm having oats on my prog meal as well.
Okay. You're doing oatmeal as prog meal?
No, I'm doing a mixture of stuff like, a couple of nuts like almonds and chia seeds and whatnot, like mixing it.
Okay.
I think the most broken prog food is watermelon. It is.
What?
Zeppe likes this because I talk about this a lot. Watermelon is by far the easiest prog food to eat. You can't convince otherwise.
That's such a mess.
Can you link the Twitter, please? I had to laugh so hard. I legit couldn't stop laughing for like another half an hour when I saw this.
What? I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. It's just like watermelon? Come on, link it. Just link it so we can judge you.
I was like,
hold on, am I allowed to link things in chat? Can you enable me?
God damn it. I was gonna get you. Alright, hold on. I got you.
Oh, thank you. I told Zeppe this was how I do prog.
In summer.
You guys are fucking...
It's like a fucking machine gun. Oh my God.
I got another vid for you. Remind me to give it to you after this.
Yeah, Jesus. It's so funny because it's not even like, something stupid. It's just some ducks eating watermelon really fast. And it's...
Yeah, that's me in prog.
Oh. Wholesome memes, guys. Wholesome memes. Okay. So watermelon and oatmeal are your go-to foods. And then do you guys schedule breaks, or do you just say you kind of get a feel for how everyone's feeling? Or are they just feeling, oh yeah, we can keep going? Or do you have mandatory, hey, you got to take a 5-minute break here?
pretty much as soon as one person needs a break, it's typically a good idea to take it then. Like as soon as someone's mentally checked out, then obviously like you're only as fast as your slowest member. So it's better to take the break then. You have to really pace yourself. You can't just go actually 16 hours straight without breaks. You'll take meal breaks. You'll take just get up and clear your head and think, and shower breaks and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you guys do shower?
Yes.
Shower. Okay. I gotcha. I have to imagine all the extra grody, sweat and everything else from the intense fight that you accrue throughout the entire process needs to be washed off, so you speed up a little bit more, right? Or maybe it's just grease for you to keep going and you go faster. Oh, okay, all right, and no poop socks, right? No poop socks.
No, it was actually that was a while ago. There was a Playboy interview with the Gordius World First team, and they somehow managed to get poop socking into a Playboy article. Yeah.
What? Oh, I remember that. I remember
ago.
that. Yeah, that was really long ago.
It was.
What the fuck? Yeah, I forgot all about Playboy interviewing. What? Maybe you guys will have the same thing. Maybe Kotaku this time will interview you guys and ask you about how you manage your ERP in between your raids. How do you guys manage your ERP in between your raids?
Well,
Carefully.
Carefully? Okay. I gotcha.
you treat Fancy Feast? I don't know.
All right. Have you guys done anything to prepare, like just before you guys start the race? Are you guys going out and like distancing yourself from computers? Or are you going in and constantly just beating Ultima Normal right now, or beating the old primals? What are you guys doing to get your heads in the game for this race?
I go on MogTalk.
IRList does a lot of maps, forcing us into those.
I had to farm maps for the new cute demo, which you can see me wearing on the show right now.
Oh, okay.
It was
Doing
very-
maps.
It took 80 maps. It was terrible.
You guys are trolling me right now.
No,
I think most of the prep is kind of done by now. So
Okay.
teams are like taking a step back and try and mentally prepare yourself for how shitty it's going to be.
Okay, so you're just kind of chilling out for right now. And you guys have
People
done all the research you
Playing
need to
other
do.
games and just like only really, 1 or 2 raids this week.
Box was like, when can I go to sleep? And he's like, we need to do more maps.
Jesus Christ. I haven't done a map in like a year. I don't know. Do you guys keep up with all the regular just PvE casual content? Like you log in, do you go do your beast tribes? Yeah?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, of course.
Okay. So you guys just absorb all the content. That's kind of like your side thing. Even though you guys do hardcore raiding, you also dive deep into all the content in there. Like, do you guys go do your gold saucer mini games every day? Or not mini games, but like your little scratch card?
I used to for like a year when it first came out, but at this point, there's just nothing I actually want to buy, so I just don't do it.
Okay, fair enough. You got all your mounts?
No, I don't care for the ones.
Oh, okay.
That makes it easier.
You don't want the Finir mount, and you don't want the little sprout thing or whatever. I forget what it's
I mean,
called.
the way I look at it is I can only ride one mount at a time, so why do I have more mounts if I don't like it more than my current mount?
Why do you have different shirts?
It's different. Shirts I can go out and buy. I don't have to farm in game.
Well, you can buy mounts in the game too, technically, and they'll cost as much as the shirt, or more. All right. So the other part here with we talked about a little bit. Do you guys feel like Ultimate Coil is an overall achievement, just not like a hard world first content achievement, but an achievement for the game, for people to have something to do throughout it? Like when you guys are done, you're like, hey, we've done world first, we've had our race and everything else, and people are still out there doing this content. Did it work the way that it should? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's actually especially nice for the I would say mid-core crowd, maybe a bit more elevated mid-core, if you could say, the people actually interested in doing it. Because me personally, I would always feel like I would enjoy always having something to work towards. When there's something, there's always one more fight to beat, basically. It's always a good feeling for me. And I think having that fight to eventually want to kill is something that's good for the game. And of course, me more doing it hardcore is also enjoyable because this is the perfect fight, I feel, for world progression. Like, world progression on the actual tiers on even patches has become a bit less interesting because it takes just 1 day to kill them. But a weekly progression is very enjoyable as a world progression kind of fight to do. Oh, nice dogs in the background.
They just don't care for anything you're saying right now. They just don't care, man. But yeah, no. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
I think it's I don't know. Having this extra step is something that I think the raid community has been wanting to do. Right? They always want something to strive forward to. They want to say, "Hey, I'm working on this content," and when they beat it, it's an achievement to them. This is still a huge achievement. Like I saw posts on Twitter just yesterday. They're like, "Hey, we finally cleared it. Here's Ultimate," and that's still something, man. They get their weapons and then they're done. And it's they may have used like guides and everything else, but still going out there and executing this for like 19-20 minutes long is difficult, right?
Especially ever since Creator, like the game is, especially Savage Tiers, it has progressively gotten easier and easier and easier. So it's refreshing as well to have something actually difficult in game to do that's relevant. It's also kind of a wake-up call for a lot of people as well, because they've been going through Creator, Deltascape, Sigmascape, thinking, this is how hard content gets. If they didn't, do Gordius Midas or anything in A Realm Reborn even. And then, kind of being,
Baby.
alarmed at the fact that it might be a bit more difficult than they thought.
But I mean, it's funny that this content has a lifespan of 6 months for one fight.
I mean, it's gonna be probably even longer. I think when the next Ultimate releases, I don't think that that UCOP is gonna lose the relevancy at all. I think people are still gonna work towards it, but they will just split up. Instead of saying, okay, so Tuesday we do our weeklies, and then on the second raid or third raid day, let's say we're in mid-core static, we're gonna do UCOP. No, they're gonna say, okay, one day we do UCOP, and then the other day we do UwU, and then just
I wouldn't recommend doing two at the same time.
I mean, you're mid-core static, you want, if you were to go for progression only, you would spend more time, right? So I'm sure they would want to have fun. So I can imagine having multiple different ultimates with different aspects of difficulty. I assume that would give some sort of enjoyment. Having one day you do this and the other day you do that, and have tiny steps of progression, and you feel good about yourself.
But you lose so much progression when you throw yourself off track and you're just jumping around between things, right? If you haven't cleared either of the ultimate fights.
I mean, you also keep your people on track. You keep them in shape, basically, by doing multiple different things instead of just one.
It's like workouts.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
It's also really good as a metric for how skilled someone is. If you're taking on trials and things like that, it's the best place to sort of gauge someone's skill.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, right now, if you want to build teams, for people who are, throwing their teams together, they possibly want to take people into Ultimate UCOP just to see how they handle it, right?
Yeah. It's just a much harder fight.
I think Square Enix has made a good choice level syncing it to the point where they have, because that content is just going to stay relevant until at least the end of the expansion. Afterwards, it might become a bit weird with level sync and whatnot. But at least until patch 4.55 or however far we go, this expansion.
Yeah.
This fight and the next Ultimate will just be as hard as they were week 1, basically. Maybe slightly different because it's synced to 345 and it's kind of weird, but essentially it wasn't much of a number check to begin with, where that matters. So the fights just stay as difficult, the achievement of clearing them stays essentially the same, and so the lifespan of that content is just extended indefinitely.
Yeah. It's slightly less because the weapons are like that. If you went for the stats themselves, the weapons are slightly less like valuable because they're 345 and these ones are going to be 375. But you still have the glamour and you still have the title and you still like have the achievement of having it cleared overall. So
do you guys like the glamour that are coming out with Ultimate?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think.
Ultimate,
I mean, at first, when I at first heard that it's just another title and just another weapons, I was like, maybe you could have done something different. And when I heard like, it's like the AF1 gear, but then when like data miners actually showed us like the effects on them, I was quite impressed. They look pretty good. I would have liked it if they gave us some other rewards, maybe a mount, maybe something different, maybe something special. Would have been nice, but I guess for them it's a lot more about the challenge itself. So giving us the challenge is like reward in itself already.
And then walking around with glamour that looks like a spotlight.
Yeah, definitely, and the title.
Yeah. I mean, are you guys happy with throwing tons of glow on these weapons? A lot of people seem to be against it, but I feel like if it's a really hard achievement, it needs something that stands out that's super obvious, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, my first assumption when I heard, okay, so this is Ultima, it is really confirmed it's Ultima. My first assumption was, are you gonna get accessories with 2 material slots? This is gonna be hella sick. And then like, I was thinking like, okay, so we're gonna get accessories who are like super glowing, and then maybe 4.5 is gonna be left side gear, so it'd be like the ultimate lantern. I don't know. It would have been fun.
So you have like a ring on your hand that's just like your whole hand just glows.
Yeah, maybe like that.
Okay. That would have been. I don't know. Would people still want to? I guess people still would want to do it if they had a glowy hand from that. I couldn't imagine anything else besides weapons. Sfia?
I think people would do it regardless of the reward. Maybe a couple less, but you don't really do it for the weapon or the title. It's like actually just getting it done.
You do it to stand out, though, right? A lot of people do it to stand out.
I don't think so. I think it's more like the challenge of doing the hardest thing possible in the game.
Sure.
Like this was sort of introduced as like the pinnacle of what they could design in the game. It was the way they sort of introduced it to us. So I think that's the big selling point for most of the people who do it.
If it was for the rewards only, people wouldn't do UCOP anymore, but they're still doing it. So I think that's proof enough that it's more about the challenge than the rewards.
Okay. So you don't think that if you clear like UCOP, you should get like an emote that is the Bahamut emote?
No, I think that would be really fucking cool, but who knows? I don't think they will ever do that.
When they came out with that shortly after like UCOP, it felt weird. It felt like that would have been one of the most perfect rewards. I mean, you have the weapons, then you have this whole emote, so you can run around and do this emote on people that they can't do anything about because they didn't clear Ultimate.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't have made $28 from each person.
Yep.
It's true.
It's a company after all. It's a business.
Yeah.
You to make money.
All right. So let's go back here. Look at the rest of these topics. So I guess this is probably a little bit bigger of a conversation. I don't know if you guys have done a lot of testing with the jobs and how they're going to go in there. Has anything really changed about the meta with how you're going to approach UCOP? Not UCOP, sorry. UwU.
Nope.
Still the exact same.
I mean, Dark Knight got its buffs, so you might potentially go in with it, but for the healers, it's still the same, and for the DPS, it's still the same. Like, I saw that other comp. I made like a quote.
Triple ranged.
Yeah, triple ranged. I mean, I can kind of see why you would do that, because if you think about it, I mean, putting in a Dragoon at the same time, I think that's not as good. I would probably, if you go for the triple ranged meme, you should also put in the Monk for Mantra. Like, if they say it's not a DPS fight, then whatever, really. Like, why put the Dragoon in there? It's just a disadvantage because of Blood for Blood and no other things. I can see why you would go with the triple range. Like, you have Dismantle, Double Refresh, the Troubadour, and then Infinite Raises.
And flexibility to move around a little bit more, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you'll also suffer from disadvantages. You will lose DPS. So if you could skip phases, or like if you could skip certain parts, they said this fight is not going to have major DPS checks, which means to me, having good DPS, you will skip something at the end of the phase. And then the second part is, what if they do bring in mechanics that go on the 2 melees first and then on the ranged? You would not get that information because you have a third ranged. So these are just like other disadvantages of it.
So you think just for the safety of like fight design with how Square Enix works, that you should have 2 melee, 2 range, 2 healers, 2 tanks, so on?
I mean, if you want to go real safe, go on with 6 paladins. I'll
Why
ground
not?
all the way. Why not? Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why don't you do it?
I mean,
I think there's a point at which you just don't have enough DPS, but you say.
So, I mean, the DPS check wasn't like huge in UCOB, but for progression, it was something, right? Until you guys got used to doing it, then it was... I mean, when you guys did Chwitania the first time, did you guys hit Enrage, or you just cleared it the first time?
I think first time no deaths is just a kill. The DPS checks weren't really DPS checks. It's more like... Because the way that fight was designed, it's all very like compartmentalized. And as soon as you can clear that like small area of the fight, so twin or nail or Bahamut or twin and nail phase, like as soon as you just like become comfortable with the mechanics, the DPS just comes really naturally. So it's not as if you ever have to actually think really hard about optimizing in that fight. There's one DPS check, which is, golden, which is still not difficult. Week 1, Clown Kefka was harder, in my opinion.
Yeah.
As long as no one dies.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, even if you don't die, Clown Kefka was actually a DPS check.
Oh, okay. And you guys feel like they're pretty much just going to avoid any kind of DPS checks going forward with Ultima. It's just going to be mechanics and how they handle it, from what they said, at least.
So if they're going with the same like philosophy and that every comp should be able to kill this fight, but having more DPS will make it easier, then I think that the DPS checks are probably going to be a pushover and undertuned, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that you can go in there and play like shit and still kill it.
They did say that they want to put the emphasis this time on mechanics only, and that I don't know how to read it exactly, but from how I read it and how I heard it from other people that saw the JP original text, it sounds like if you die in the fight, it would cause an instant wipe. So in that case, just don't die.
I mean, that also just come from a mechanic standpoint, because just imagine or remember the original Titan fight. You could get knocked off.
Exactly.
You couldn't get away.
Yeah. That's what I've been thinking. The wall might not be a resurrectable, where you can be resurrected. The wall might be you get in the wall and you're done for the entire fight.
Do you guys want to see that brought back for difficulty's sake?
That's the reason why Titan was that hard and back in the days. You got pushed off, you're gone. The arena was tight, it was small, and you're gone, away forever.
And the fact that Titan's in this fight only kind of points more to that as well. Yeah, I think that's...
They're not, but they have you fall off of other fights now, and you just teleport to the middle of the arena.
Yeah, but this is
here's another thing.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. Remember how much attention Yoshida paid to the wall this time. He said "Ooh, look at this fancy wall. If you go and you just instantly die," and he did it twice. I think he went into it. I don't know. To me, it sounds like wall. You're gone forever.
Okay. I mean, that would be awesome. I mean, do you guys feel like the game needs to be more punishing in these regards to make the fights more enjoyable? They just need to make it to where you just can't recover. Red Mage isn't so overpowered for progression because you just can't res people?
It would definitely lower the value of Red Mage if you cannot get resurrected. Yeah, it would be more punishing. I mean, that's insta death mechanics were the reason why old fights were that hard. Like looking back at like AS, for example, die and the fight is over instantly. And they said like if you die this time, it's over. So I think like something like that's gonna happen. So I mean, in UCOP, you die. You're like, oh, okay, let's use our free healer B3 and Bahamut for resurrecting everyone. It's like whatever. The DPS trick is like, so yeah. I think it's going to be a lot more punishing.
Do you think the players are going to complain about that? I mean, like, we
No.
see the reaction every time someone has something that's just like, oh, this is not fun. This is just annoying. Right? They add something in there. It's a little bit difficult, and that's what the response is.
Some players will complain about everything, but I don't think this is something that needs to be complained about. More punishing, like real punishments for failure, is I think a good thing in raids, which hasn't been present for a long time.
Okay. So do you feel, I guess, in fight design, kind of how they maybe need to play this stuff out is that you have to do it pretty much, you have to have it down to within 1% of perfect for you to clear it. DPS, mechanic-wise, everything else, or should it be to where after a while a big gap's going to be perfectly fine for clearing the content? How difficult should this content actually end up being? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, it's tough though, because while on one hand, like I personally think that, you know, a really well-tuned fight, I mean like highly tuned fight, say week 1 A3S, is awesome. I don't know if that's necessarily healthy in terms of fight design. I think there's like a balance to be struck where like you can't get through it, you know, just by dodging mechanics and not pressing your buttons, but it also needs to be doable within a certain degree of like variance. It's a really like fine line they need to find.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I think the difference from his week 1 A3 example is that it's week 1 and eventually you will outgear the DPS check if you know halfway what you're doing. But in Ultimate, it's you go in there with this gear and you're done. That's the gear you're going to clear with. That's the gear you entered. It's the same thing. So I think the decision to move away from DPS as the main focus might be healthy in terms of helping clear numbers, because even if you look at the famous JP crowds, so to say, who can just kill this fight over and over with like thousands of players, these are not always players who are the greatest at doing damage. And from the fight design, that's totally okay. And I think it's supposed to be totally okay. And from what Square Enix said, they also think so and won't make the next fight a DPS-focused fight. In terms of mechanics, I think it's good to have some tunes so you have very little room for mechanical failure. I think at the very least, they could bring back the old idea from like Midas era of waiting, where if you have someone die, the boss at least gets the damage up, so moving forward, it just becomes gradually harder the more you mess up.
I really think they should maybe do less. I guess this is just more like normal Savage mechanic planning, but instead of killing people, you should just give them damage downs. So they'll be more likely to do the mechanics because they don't want.
But that's actually what's been happening recently, where it's like the opposite of punishment. It's here you go, you can get through this, and then they make it so DPS doesn't even matter in the fight, so that damage down is
It matters on FF logs and EPing, dude.
doesn't matter in the world's first race, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah. Look. This is a quote. I forget who said this, but everyone really should be 99 percentile, right?
Who said
I
that?
don't think percentiles work like that.
I can't remember who said this. Somebody said that, and it was one of the funniest things I've heard.
I mean, it's kind of dumb saying, because if you think about it, if everyone is 99 percentile, you're not 99% anymore.
Exactly.
Like,
somebody said it. God, Moon knows who said it. I don't remember who said it though. But yeah, I don't know. With you guys, FF logs doesn't even matter. You're just going in for the clear of the content. Then FF logs becomes a thing afterwards. You're like, oh, okay, what can I do now?
I mean,
But-
Frosty, you have to keep in mind is if we're the first to upload to FFlogs, we get the free 100. So that's
Yeah?
That's the real reason you World Park. It's the only reason.
Okay.
So you can get that 100 for free.
What if you guys do double red mage or something? I mean,
You just kill him. Yeah.
You kill the other red mage.
you can just make sure the other one has to like die. Oh, okay, we gotta do this death mechanic. You're assigned to this death mechanic. You're gonna deal with Nessie. I can't wait until Ultimate Gordius comes. It's gonna be great. Or Ultimate, I guess it would just be Alexander overall, right?
I mean, there's going to be Ultimate Alexander at some point, for sure.
Yeah. All right. I lost track because we got into FF logs here. We're talking about job meta. Okay, so job meta overall is still going to be the same. You're going to want red mages for progression, and eventually you'll evolve that into probably like a machinist or something, I'm assuming, once you feel like you got the mechanics down.
Summoner.
Summoner?
Summoner still has the safety of a raise. Obviously not like the chain resist like it does. And it does like a comparable damage contribution to a machinist.
Okay.
So, yeah. Like you have to sort of weigh the pros and cons of every option and every role. So there's like the red mage versus summoner thing, and there's a point like where mid-prog you'll have to swap that as well. So if you find yourself getting towards the end of a fight, mechanics are happening easier, you're not dying so much, you swap to the summoner just to make that push a little bit easier. Bard vs Machinist is another one of those because Dismantle is just really, really strong. You also have to look at what Bard and Machinist bring that's different. And Machinist has really strong targetable mitigation, so you can, if you can target the boss, you can debuff it. Whereas if there's things like, you know, the boss is channeling off screen and hits you with a big AoE, then Troubadour is much more valuable. Things like that, as well as multi-dotting and, you know, the strengths that the classes have in terms of offense.
Oh, okay.
So every single slot has those kinds of decisions to make in terms of what you're going to bring. And there's not always like this is the best one to take in. It's this might be best for this phase, and this might be best for this phase. So it's sort of an evolving like meta as the fight goes on.
Do we have the range on your team doing a mix between the three?
Kind of, except I think Leaf is always favoring Summoner a bit, but he's played enough Wet Mage to where we are like, we need a bunch of raises, he's gonna go on it, so.
Okay.
But we never won double ranged Bard Machinist, I agree with him there. Let's see, Summoner a bit reduced waste utility is still a lot of value.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing is you guys just aren't going to bring Black Mage. You're just like, okay.
If there's permadeath and Summoner loses value and there's like a need for very high single target burst damage, then some like Black Mage maybe, but like that's the only situation in which I can see it being a thing.
Okay.
But that's not going to happen.
All
So
right.
no.
Fair enough. And Arthas, of course, asked the question of which summoner or which caster are you going to be for this ultimate. Of course, we know what you're going to be. Sfia, you're there. You have no choice. Maybe it'll change. We never know, dude. All right. So you guys feel pretty confident going in with the same sort of meta. We don't expect to see anything different, except for when the JP team comes and they're playing with Black Mage. I guess Monk and what would be weird? It would be Black Mage, Monk, Samurai. What would be the other range? I guess if they brought a Black Mage and a Summoner, that would be kind of odd, right? And they just do that little trio there, and it's going to be high damage. Yeah, they could do that. And then they would do. Would it be Dark Knight Warrior? Would be the meme, or Dark Knight Paladin?
Dark Knight.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dark Knight. Okay, yeah.
Paladin's kind of a lock. But what I was saying before about like choices between jobs, everything kind of has its own little niche, except like Samurai Black Mage. They just suck. Dark Knight does have its strengths, and so you can like. There's an argument for it between it and Warrior, where it's personal mitigation versus party mitigation, and both are valid, but one of them's kind of a little stronger at the moment.
Okay.
And Paladin is just like a lock-in.
Well, of course, Paladins are the best. I mean, people just, they finally figured it out, I guess.
So smug.
Yeah. God, it's been such a good expansion. All All right. So here we go. Here's a question I have for you. So if you go back to UCOB and you're thinking about things that you really didn't like about that fight, what stands out the most? What was in that fight in particular that you're like, I hope they learn their lesson and they're not making it here for UwU? Are you guys okay with me saying UwU? Should I say just ultimate?
Go for it. It's fine. I hated the amount of downtime we had.
Okay.
I think that it's kind of it's kind of two-sided because it makes it a lot more atmospheric, and I think that's a really good thing that the fight did. But it just I think that a really large contributing factor to executing a fight is doing damage while doing mechanics. And when all the mechanics are just you don't have to press your buttons, you can just run around like an idiot. Kind of takes away from a bit of that skill level. I disliked the victory lap that was the last phase, and that it's really, really simple, which is kind of cool because again, it's atmospheric and it's all built up to this, but it is really just like a free pass. And it is, and everyone who farms it now can just say, "Oh, we got past ads, it's a clear." The DPS checks are low, in my opinion, and the thing that I think I disliked the most about all of it was Octet. I think it was a horrible mechanic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aya, what's your thoughts on this?
I think I agree, and a lot of people agree that the downtime, like you said, is the biggest aspect that should be reconsidered for future fights, because just not hitting buttons just doesn't feel good.
Okay.
But let me ask, why didn't you like Octet? Because I like Octet.
Okay, I didn't like Octet because it was 13-something minutes into the fight, and it was a 50-50 mechanic. So that means that you could go 14 pulls and get a whole data set, which would just feed you all this bullshit information that is all it works with the data set you have, but it's all just statistical anomalies, and it's not something you're looking at. So an example is the first 2 pulls that we had of Octet. The markers that we had, the dragons went clockwise, and it went the markers on tank, healer, DPS. The second time it went counterclockwise, and it went healer, tank, DPS for the markers. So we thought, oh, maybe it's the markers. No. But it's a 50-50 thing. So if it worked those 2 times and kept on working, and then we got 7 pulls in, and it didn't work, then we'd have to go back to the drawing board because, again, it's like a 50-50 mechanic. I disliked that it wasn't very clear, and it had a lot of room for sort of a statistical anomalies, and we got a lot of those, which fucked us. But that was the thing that I didn't like about it.
Okay,
I think that's fair.
All right. Zeppe?
What I didn't like so much about it was as soon as you get more comfortable and better with the DPS, you get some weird phase changes, really weird phase changes, especially now in 345. And just especially for classes like Machinist, where you get your wildfire while you're in a newer link. And I could go on a massive rant about Machinist. I think if it wasn't for Dismantle, that class could probably be deleted. But it's something that I didn't like. I think they should have paid more attention to the jobs and how they interact with each other and how they interact with the mechanics. The next thing that I didn't like, and I hope that they really have learned about it, is the nail phase and nail RP. And this is an underlying issue of it. It's not so much about the nail RP, but it's rather about the triggers. I hope that ACT is not going to have that much of an impact on the next ultimate. Because in this current ultimate, if you have let's say you don't have ACT, it makes the fight tremendously harder to pass, because the nail phase is going to take a bit of your endurance and awareness, and I hope that triggers are not going to be as strong in the next one.
What they need is just voice acting for their RP, right?
Maybe. And then what I hope for the next ultimate, but the assets for it are kind of the like basically what we have is basically pointing towards the different. But
Mm-hmm.
what I didn't like about UCOP that much is they took very basic mechanics or like very very basic assets and then mixed them up to make mechanics. So like to make basic events. It wasn't so much about a play about like very smart things or like complex things or debuffs. It was always like, okay, here you have 5 fireballs, then you have like the mega flare, and then you have nail shooting out a beam at the same time. But it wasn't like, you know, for example, the stuff like from T8 or like a petrification or whatnot, like stuff where you could really be creative about and have you wonder, okay, what could they want us to do? More so, it was very blunt. I don't know if you kind of get what I mean.
Like it was obvious on what they wanted you to do.
Not so much obvious, but it was just blunt stuff, just like in your face, kind of.
Okay.
Here you have a fireball. Here you have like 8 towers. Now have fun, kind of.
Okay. Are you saying that you want to see kind of new mechanics overall?
Rather like
A little more cryptic, I guess.
Yeah,
And
a
actually
little
have to
more
think
cryptic.
more about it. Yeah.
Exactly. So UCOP is complex, but it's not. Wait,
Not new.
It's not. It's
get
not.
what you're
It's
saying.
complex, but it's not complicated.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Not
we have
enough
a lot
puzzles
of,
to figure out.
yeah, exactly. And I hope that they would do this for the next Ultimate, but the assets that we have are pointing towards something different. So yeah.
Nah. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be watching streams of it, of course. Just to let you guys know, too, I'm sleeping when it gets released because I'm hoping no one can clear it within 8 hours.
I would hope so.
I'm hoping so. So we'll see how that works out. You know, if someone clears it, just ping you guys tweet at me a whole bunch of times or ping me a whole bunch. Help me out. Yeah. I got you. I don't know. I feel like Square Enix has this. They sometimes have this way of overreacting. Right? They get not the customer. I guess we are the customers. The community's reactions, and then they kind of overstep what they should be doing. And so, for example, as when I guess people said that the content was too difficult, they went down to what Midas was, which was pretty good, but then it was still too difficult, so then they went down to creator, and then they just kept going. I'm trying to think of good. I'm not going to bring up PvP because that's a great example, but I'm not going to bring it up because it's just not a good topic for PvE discussions. But do you guys feel like are you confident that Square Enix is going to produce content that you want from this, or do you feel like they might overstep?
I think they'll do fine because Ultimate is kind of a compromise for them to allow them to make weight tiers that are easier. Because it's basically like the downward trend you mentioned didn't stop with creator. Like the latest 2 tiers are perhaps even easier, or most definitely even easier. And I think their reasoning, so to say, is that us more hardcore players are getting their own piece of content to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the weight tiers can be moved down a bit closer to extreme primal difficulties, so there's a smooth transition for mid-core players to perhaps get into waiting.
Well, here's the thing, is that, as we've seen, this content's not just for hardcore raiders. It's for people who are just raiders that will eventually clear it, right? And so this content spans over different parts of the PvE community, I guess. And so there is a certain point they're like, well, do we want to make it more accessible for more raiders? And then they go in this whole downward spiral again.
I don't think they have any reason to lower the difficulty from where it was in Ultimate Coil personally, but I'll see if Square Enix can prove me wrong and make it easier.
Okay.
Yeah, they did say that the Savage tiers were meant to get harder and harder, and then we had Sigma. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that they 100% said, but I think they just changed their philosophy. They were just like, instead we want content that people who are casual raiders can still clear, and it could be, you know, enjoyable to go through that whole process. And then we want to just create this whole nother level of content with one fight for the really hardcore players. And so we're going to see if they keep that distance there or if they're going to close the gap a little bit, but I don't know.
At most, you will see the first clear after the first sleep night.
You think 2 days at least?
No. Well, at most, basically. Like, that you will have the next year, maybe. Then you will have like the night of sleep, and then they will clear like an hour after.
Do you think they're going to increase the difficulty of Savage a little bit? Just a little bit?
Slightly, yeah. I think so. But I think, to me, Savage is not so much about the challenge or like how ultimate is, but I think I still enjoy Savage a lot. I enjoyed Sigmascape a lot simply because for new mechanics and like just as I said earlier about UCOP, that they were like blunt. In Sigmascape you get like cryptic stuff and you really have to be like creative about it and to be like, okay, so what could this mean? You have like 4 heads and like they're tethered to DPS and like what you gotta do. And I don't know, I really enjoy these kind of things because you get like many mechanics after each other and you're like, okay, so I got to remember that this painting does this, and then you got to remember that that painting did something else, and then you have multiple tethers going out at the same time, for example in O6S, and you just get lots of information very quickly. So I personally still enjoy Savage a lot. So yeah,
okay,
just
I'll accept that as an answer. Oh, gotcha. I do have a quick question. It's a little bit of a side question for you. Aya.
Hello.
One of those. Yeah, and Zeppe. This is from Momo.
Oh no.
And this is completely, I guess it's relevant. What was your favorite meme during DM UCOP Prague?
Safe spot? No, JK.
No, you can't say that.
Safe spot?
No.
Can't tell this one.
No, the favorite meme was definitely the
Okay.
eating popcorn with a spoon.
All right, so since that conversation about eating popcorn with like a spoon or chopsticks or whatever else, it's actually not that uncommon. People do, especially in Japan. They eat popcorn and they eat like everything else while they're on the computer with like chopsticks because they don't want messy fingers for their keyboard and their mouse.
I think I also asked him if he's eating his chips with a fork or something.
Yeah. Yeah, Sfia's just like, nah, man.
I get it. It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's just strange.
It's okay. Maybe you just don't have to replace your keyboard as much if you do that. I mean, keyboards get gross, dude. All right. Let's go back to this layout here. We got one more major point that I want to go over. I guess we kind of discussed it a little bit here. But I mean, do you feel like Ultimate had a negative impact in any way on the raiding community? Like, did it break up a lot of groups? Did people stop playing the game? Did people just say, screw it? Did it have any kind of, did it have any negative effect that would make it to where we need to fix that going forward in the future? Or is it, that's what it is? People just need to get good.
One negative effect that I've seen, well, it's not so much that it's only a negative effect, it's also a positive effect at the same time. But I've seen many groups replace people. You always had, like, in those raiding discords, many posts about, okay, here we're looking for this spot, we're looking for that, and many people getting replaced or kicked or just quit. So it's to some degree negative for those people who actually do get replaced because they're either just not, like, either they don't have the dedication or like are just not capable of doing it. But the positive effect on the other side is that these teams will get stronger if they get a good replacement in the return.
Yeah.
I think historically, harder content has made groups have issues. If you think back to Gordius and Midas, like lots of teams were disbanding over, A3 and A7, A8. That did happen, but I think because this isn't tied to a lockout and it's not the Savage raids, it's a little bit different, and teams are specifically forming for this content, while still having different, weekly lockout rating teams for the Savage stuff. I think it'll work out more or less even. So some teams will obviously, hit a wall and be like, no, fuck this, throw in the towel. But I think enough teams are formed for this to sort of counteract that.
Okay. So you think at the moment people kind of have the right expectations going in there, and so the same kind of fallout that we saw is not really going to happen unless people they're just biting off too more than they could chew. Right now they know what they should be chewing, though, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, more or less, especially with Ultimate having just already happened as well. It's not the first one coming up.
Okay. All right. Aya?
What I think is it may be a bit difficult for people who got into the game more recently to get into Ultimate, because something I used to hear back around Gordius Midas is some people complain that there was no transitioning content between Extreme Primals and the weight tiers because they were very far apart in difficulty. And now instead we are looking at a situation where Extreme Primals and weight tiers are pretty close in difficulty, but then you have one step further in Ultimate, which is then very far away from the weight tiers. So if I'm thinking I would be someone who started playing in Deltascape or Sigma, and that's all the content I have experience in, and I want to start looking at Ultimate, it might be a bit scary. Less for us who have more experience with content, where it used to be harder in Gordius and Midas, but I think it may be an issue to have absolutely nothing in between Deltascape, Sigmascape, and then the Ultimate fights are making.
Okay. You got Goka already coming in and trolling you guys, by the way. You guys sound completely different. Completely different, but that's okay. You have this nice, deep voice, I feel like. I don't know, it's not the deepest voice I've ever heard, but I might recommend you go into a children's birthday party and finding some balloons or something. It's just I'm sorry. Oh, I set Zeppe off, didn't I? Okay. All right, let's go back. I'll check. All right, Sfia, you have a question for you.
Okay.
This is from I guess I don't know how to say his name. Hyros, is that right? I guess. He said, Sfia, sometime ago you made a post about the current state of Black Mage. There's been a couple of patches and done some tweaks on its mobility. How do you feel about the current state of Black Mage now? Has anything changed, or do they still need to take a look at for further developmental issues of the job?
So the problem with Black Mage was never mobility, and that's kind of what they've addressed the most, and it's relevant to Ultimate as well, and that the mobility wasn't a problem through UCOB. The learning curve is, because it's naturally it's got longer cast bars, you need to be a lot more precise. You can't run around like other jobs. That's an issue, but in terms of how it stands in comparison to other jobs, it's still in the exact same place, and that it just brings less overall. They've fixed the areas that didn't really need any attention and given it a little more damage, but not enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Another question here. I might not ask that question. Unless it's not a real name. It's you Dancho. You're Dancho. If you're okay with a meme question, I can ask it. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, will you fuck up and make world third this time?
I mean, statistically, yes. I hope not. Would be nice to win for once. I hope if we don't get world first, we at least get world third and not second, just as a selfish thought, because it's more funny.
How many times have you done third so far?
I got third in Deltascape, the last Ultimate, and Sigmascape. So the entire expansion.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude. We have another question that just came in for Zeppe. And I'm just gonna let you guys know some of these questions are pretty meme, but it is what it is. This is MogTalk, right? How do you become such a comfy bard? What's that in reference to? Are you normally a comfy person?
I guess so. I don't know if that's because of the balance, because of the comfy morning. I don't know how to answer this.
Don't even know the reference completely. It's just kind of a weird statement.
I don't know what they want to hear.
Maybe they just want to hear you, Zeppe.
Okay, hello, my name is Zeppe. I mean, how to become a comfy bard. Just enjoy it and play it.
Okay.
And complain to Squenix to buff it more. Even if it's fine.
Because they definitely need more of that, right?
I think what I would actually like to see on Bard, it would be maybe too much of a buff, but cut Troubadour effect time to half and cut the CD timer to half. So it's 90-15 instead of 180-30. That's something that I would like a lot, but it might be too good in comparison to Dismantle. Who knows? I don't think they will do it. I think they will stay. I think they will keep Bard and Machinist the same forever until the end.
Okay. Here's a kind of related question for Sfia. Again, it goes to casters because you're the caster person, right? How do you feel about the balance with casters versus each other, and the casters versus the rest of the DPS? Do you feel like one has more of a gap than the other?
So casters versus each other is kind of an okay place. I think Summoner still does a little too much damage compared to Black Mage, but otherwise, like, you know, the utility is kind of even. I mean, Black Mage is missing that like massively, but we all know that. Summoner and Red Mage are in pretty healthy spots. I think compared to other jobs is really hard to say because like the big three, Dragoon, Ninja, Bard is so strong, and it's not so much of casters being weak, but it's the synergies of those three just being ridiculous. So to break that, you'd either need to nerf something pretty heavily or buff all casters pretty heavily, and I don't think there's like an easy way to do that.
Okay. This question was in chat, and I figured it'd be. I'm gonna twist it a little bit. Could they make a fight too difficult for you? Like, it can be cleared, but is there like a point to where it's just like they should have not made it this difficult?
They could.
Okay.
They can, as long as it's not a retarded DPS check.
Okay.
Like, to the point where you want to run a speedrun comp and then hope for crazy amount of direct hit and crit RNG. That's what I would not enjoy seeing at all.
Okay.
Mechanically, I would totally love it if you make a fight that's just so insane that, like, that you just like.
You have to have the perfect comp. You have to have the perfect DPS check. You can't mess up a single mechanic. No one can die. It has to be 100% perfect within a very small degree. That would be too difficult, probably.
Don't think so.
I think if they throw enough reactionary mechanics at you in a row, eventually you'll fail.
No.
Like if they just throw back to back to back. So think of things like when you first see Heaven's Wall Trio, it's like really daunting because everyone has to get to the tower, react to where it is, counter around, get knocked back perfectly, and not take too much damage. If you do that sort of thing just repeatedly, where you have to identify where you're going to go, make adjustments based on your comp, your position, and do it over and over again, like eventually you just hit a point where you just can't do anymore, I think.
I mean, they could make a raid as difficult as solo Red Mage Palace of the Dead. Right? Where it takes 2 years or whatever to clear the content.
That's hugely RNG based. Yeah.
Yeah, but you always gotta ask yourself, like, what is the true difficulty behind this? I think I personally always like differ between mechanics, like difficulty where it's just dump difficult and like actually smart difficult, in the sense of like, let's say you actually have to do like major math in a fight while you have to dodge things. That would be like smart difficult, and then when you
Do
have like, other
calculus.
yeah, like, and then when you have dump difficulties, like when they just increase the HP by an infinite amount and you just have to do more damage. I think that's very simple and very blunt.
Okay.
At least for me personally.
I think it would be interesting if, say, were to make a fight that is very cryptic to figure out, because in the long run, once these strategies are out, it won't be frustrating for people catching up to clear. But would be very interesting to try to proc the fight. I would like to see what would happen as a community when, for example, you've got this daunting mechanic, just Grand Octet on crack. You've got no idea what's happening. Like, what would happen a month into the content? Nobody has figured it out. Would people just like start posting everything they know on Reddit? Would like try to crowdfund
theories? Yeah.
Yeah.
Would be
There were
interesting.
some crackpot theories about Octet that I'm pretty sure all groups went through.
I hope.
We got really far down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I went really down into ISDMs. Dragons! The way how they dive in nail face, that's how they dive in Octet.
Things like that. Things like you got to number them in nail phase going clockwise, and then the one with the lowest number, closest to Bahamut, is the one that dives first. That one worked. Like, that theory worked for us for 14 pulls.
Yeah. The way where Bahamut looks like. If he looks to the left, it starts diving left first. He dives to the right, he dives right first.
So we had to back it to you, but I think we solved Octet with like 5 or 6 samples.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, I mean, do you guys want a mechanic that's in the same realm of like Nessie, where you have 26 different possibilities with how you might have to respond to it if you're doing a mechanic properly?
I like branching decision trees. That's like good design, where if this happens, then you do this or this, and then if that happens, you do that or that. But I think Nessie was kind of dumb in just the sheer scope of it. It was absurd damage on top of like constant decision making. So in a sense, it was really good, but at the same time, it was kind of overbearing and placed too much responsibility on too few people.
Okay.
What would be sick in this next Ultimate would be if Ultima actually has the ability to spawn the primals, but in a randomized pattern. So like you have a phase where it would spawn a combination of Garuda and Titan, and these two are actually like, somewhat like not major ads, but like small ads, and you have to like fight them and kill them quickly and burst them. And at the same time, the third primer that Ultima did not summon to the like arena does things at the outside. So for example, if Titan is at the edge, he casts like tons of landslides at you. If Ifrit is there, he like charges to the arena. If Garuda is there, I don't know, whatever.
You need more variation to create like more than just 3 different mobs, because then you have a very like small amount of like different ways that it could go. But I like that kind of idea. Yeah.
Okay.
So like different combinations of like he spawns this and the third one just does other things. I would like that.
Hyro said a pretty interesting question of, is there a mechanic that you guys are actually afraid of to see in Ultima?
I do not want to see Searing Wind.
Okay. Searing Wind would be fun, though. I mean, you have to split 2 people up, right? And you got... Well, I forgot exactly how that mechanic worked. 2 people get Searing Wind, and they just have to go to the edges of the arena, right?
No, one person gets it.
Oh, just
They
one.
get
of the
the
healers.
huge pulsing AoE that knocks people back.
Hmm.
It's more like the space that it takes up that's the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't like Searing Wind. I never really liked that too much. Other than that, yeah, as I said, like I don't want to see the Garuda plumes, but Garuda doesn't have much, so it's guaranteed that we'll get the plumes.
Okay. Here's... I guess you guys... This is kind of a weird question, but I'll ask it anyways here. Are you guys actually afraid of any other teams taking World First? Do you feel like... or do you feel your confidence is pretty high
I think any team that thinks that they get vote first is too confident in themselves.
Okay.
At this point, I would say every team has really strong players. And I think that any team can get it. Yeah, I mean, saying, okay, this should be an easy race is just very unrealistic.
Okay.
And you've always got to be scared of the GP super team.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, that's gonna
In
be.
such like progression, just anything can happen. It doesn't even have to be related to just your players. Like someone's like power could go out, someone's internet could go down. It's just too many variables to accurately say we are going to win or these guys are going to win. There's too much going on in like 1 or 2 weeks of progression.
And then you also have the RNG of players themselves. Like you could have this one guy who suddenly turns into like Ultra Instinct and then figures out every mechanic on the first side, or you just have bad luck and you're on the bad, like you get the wrong idea and you do it wrong for the entire time, and then meanwhile the other team did it right on the first try. So that's also RNG RNG that you just cannot take in for. So
yeah, a lot of mechanic solving is actually luck. It's who tries the right idea first, because you'll have a list of things that you want to go through and you'll try and cross them off and do as many things as possible, but eventually like you have to go through them all to get to the right one, and whether that's at the top of your list or your bottom of your list can make hours of difference.
Okay. But if you go Ultra Instinct, super smart, okay.
200 IQ.
Yeah. But I mean, you also have to determine which ones are the most likely, right? So your ninth man has to figure out, okay, well, what looks like the most likely? Then you kind of go in that list, right? I would think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you just like do what looks like the most likely.
Okay. We're gonna ask one more question here. How would you recommend if a mid-core or kind of semi-hardcore players were out there and they want to get into higher skill groups, what are good ways for them to go out there and find these groups or make themselves known?
I'm actually involved in the like application reviewing in RFC. So the thing that we look at most is UCOB experience and like point of views from UCOB. So the way you play, the way you analyze, the way you play, things like that is really important. Being aware of what you're doing right and wrong, what you can improve on, what situations could be made to allow you to do better. It's just really good critical thinking of your own play, as well as doing it in like a relevant setting. So pretty much only UCOB is what matters at the moment.
Okay.
One thing is mentality and like your state of rating and how you rate and how you think about it. For like, if you really want to get into hardcore, one of the things I would tell you is, are you dedicated enough? Like, do you really have the ambition to really go for it? Because it takes a lot of time and you kind of have to do it as like a hobby kind of already. And the next thing that I would tell you is do all of the content. You will not get into a really competitive group if you have never done all of the content. Definitely not. And I guess then refer to the Delete Monk trial fight, ADS.
That's a good one.
That's still pretty good.
No, go ahead. I did it without level sync and just having to hold your DPS at certain points not to die. I think that was a while back. It was pretty difficult.
I think what's important, apart from aspects I already touched on, is networking, because a lot of the times in the top groups, like if a spot opens for someone to fill, you'll never even find out, because most of these spots in top groups just get filled by essentially word of mouth. You know someone is looking, you know you want someone, and you're just going to fill your spot with someone you already know. So if you're trying to get into top weight groups and the top weight groups don't know you exist, you're not getting into a top weight group, because very rarely are they just going to make a recruitment post on Reddit and you can just go apply and get in there. A lot of the times you have to make an effort to actually start talking to these players and get to know them and get in that environment.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty. I can just confirm it by telling my story. I was at 8 a.m. in the morning. I got a message from Oxyclair on Skype. Yo, Zephy, you faggot, wake up. Let's try you. Do you still, like, it was like, do you still want to try? So, yeah, because I used to rate with him in Midas in EU, so networking can confirm. It's really important.
Okay. Yeah, just like anything. Just for you, Zeppe, Sfia posted a link here, and I'll put it in the stream chat, or you can check the Zoom chat where Sfia put it. It's the actual, what it would actually look like if he was eating the watermelon, and he wasn't a duck.
Was it I eating the watermelon? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Aya in the 5-minute breaks.
Yeah. That's a good find, dude. Good find.
Will you guys help others clear content after you clear it? Actually, that's something that I've been planning to. Like, I wanted to just put myself up for helping other teams. Obviously, not like those that are only on phase 1 and just entering it, but teams that like need some help or like want to get the clear. I would love to help.
So you're not in for like teaching people to do it, but just filling in and trying to be that kind of ace in the hole for the team.
No, I love teaching, but I sometimes tend to do it a bit too fast and too much, and then people get confused easily.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, we are going to wrap up the show now. We've been on for about 2 hours. I think it's been pretty good. Sfia, you're awake now?
Yeah. I gotta go to bed.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been up all night.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, we're gonna have a lot of race details coming up soon. And guys, for everyone to know, the FFX progress site, it's there. It's not like in a position to where I would say it's in a really good position. But I'm going to probably do duo with it. And I'm going to try to get information over to the website, but also I might have a backup spreadsheet or something if something goes wrong, because I'm still a new web developer. I'm still working on it. But please look forward to it. Hopefully we can have something interesting. I'm hoping it'll turn a lot better, because I have to have... This race is easy, because someone will clear it. A day later, someone will clear it again. A day later, someone will clear it again. So it's not like information pounding in at me. So this should be a little bit easier, but I have to get it up and ready for the next Savage one. If you guys are interested, you can check out the shitty website at www.ffxivprogress.com. But before we end off the show, I want to make sure that you guys all say your last words and shoutouts and everything else. And I guess we'll start with Sfia. Sfia, you want to go first?
Yeah. Shoutouts to my raid team, Shaggy, Fusion, Ultra Instinct, my FC, Elysium, my girlfriend, Frosty, you, Aya, Zeppe.
I like how you said my girlfriend, Frosty.
No. Comma. There's a pause.
Okay,
Frosty. Okay. And all the other World First races, just good luck on Tuesday.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Aya?
I guess I'll do a shout out to my group and also the Balance Discord, who actually did a announcement server-wide about us being on MogTalk, so we may have gotten a couple extra viewers who are memeing in chat about Zeppe and I being on. And,
of course.
Yeah.
All right. Zeppe?
Before I do my shout out, just one thing I wanted to say quickly as well about the getting into hardcore rating that I forgot about to say. Enjoy the game. That's also really important. Enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it. If you enjoy it, you will get there. In terms of shout out, I would like to do a shout out to all of the officially confirmed teams that are going for 2 weeks off, such as Wheelchair, Layla Bell's team, Shaggy, I don't know, I can't pronounce it.
Shaggy Ultra Instinct Fusion,
okay.
Something?
That one, Stardom, my group, of course, then the new JP Ultra team, and then obviously all of the other teams that want to go there. And just shout out again to my FC on Ragnarok and my FC on servers who have always been there. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, guys, it's been a great show. I appreciate you coming on and losing some sleep to talk here with me. Although it's Saturday, but you guys are going to be awake for a little bit longer, right? I mean, you're not going to bed soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm worried about. Thank you also again, Penguin Mint, for that video that we showed off at the very beginning. I hope you guys are all excited for the ultimate race. I'm pretty excited about it. Please, if I don't know if you guys want to, you can put your Twitter information in the chat here. Let me permit all you guys if you want to do that. Oh shit, that's not you. This is you. I'm gonna go through here so you guys don't get banned. I'll try not to trap you on this. And so if you guys want to follow their progress and what they post, it'd be worth kind of checking them out. I'd also recommend checking out Entropy's Twitter and Elysium's Twitter, so you guys can kind of see that. And follow me on Twitter at Frosty Stream. All right, I think it's something stupid. Is it Frosty XXIV Stream or something? Let me go back to. I don't even remember my own. Yeah, Frosty TV Stream. There we go. Follow me there, and you guys can watch any kind of retweets or anything else I have going on about the World Race too. Guys, thank you for coming on. You've been amazing. But guys, I'll play my credits here. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for having us.
Definitely. Thank you to all the viewers. Thank you, Kiara, for being my emotional support in the background. Andre Kane for letting me use the music in the intro and the closing. And most of all, thank you for everyone who subscribed to me recently. Guys, be good, keep cool, stay frosty, and bye.
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 We good?
Bye.